Welcome back to Al Chapo Sports, everyone's least favorite sports show where we do the thinking so you don't have to. Today, back with our top 10 list for Week 7 in the NFL. Spoiler alert, none of the teams have changed in the top 10. They've just kind of rearranged where they stand. Some of them dramatically so. So let's get right into it, starting with number 10, the Dallas Cowboys. Nothing much to say here because they were on a bye week. I'm not going to knock someone out of a rankings because they were on a bye, especially when it's a positive ranking. If it's a negative ranking, I might cut you some slack and let you get away with some bullshit that I wouldn't otherwise if you're on a bye week. But this is a positive list. Dallas doesn't lose their spot in the top 10 off a bye, so let's move right on to the Bills. The Bills are a top 10 team, but they have fallen to the bottom tier of that top 10. They lost to the New England Patriots this week, who are a notoriously bad team this season. It's a divisional loss, which weighs way heavier than any other loss. The problem with Buffalo is inconsistency. It is and always has been inconsistency. This team lives and dies by how Josh Allen plays. And Josh Allen is nothing if not inconsistent. Sometimes he looks like a multiple-time Super Bowl winning quarterback. Other times it's like, what are you even doing here? Not to put the entire weight of this loss on Josh Allen. That's not fair at all. But that is kind of a Bills' identity. They lost to a very bad New England. I know all this sounds negative, but all that being said, the better part of the inconsistent Bills is a top 10 team, no doubt about it. They were not that this week, which knocks them down to number 9. Moving on to number 8, we've got the Cleveland Browns, who won a close one against the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts aren't a great team. They're not even a good team, but they're not a bad team. And Cleveland is surely, step by step, tortoise in the hairstyle, putting together a win streak, putting together a decent showing this season, and they could make it to the playoffs on a wild card, because I think the AFC North belongs to another team who we'll get to later. But Cleveland, kudos on the win. That's 2 in a row for you guys, including one against the best team in the league, arguably, 49ers. Oh, don't worry, we'll get to them too. So congrats, Cleveland, on the number 8 spot. Moving on to number 7, we've got the Detroit Lions. The Lions lost to the Ravens, and it wasn't even a particularly close game. The Lions are a good team, solid all around, but they were made to look amateurish this week by the Ravens. And the Ravens, similarly to the Bills, are inconsistent. But the Ravens seem to get the better of those inconsistent exchanges, including this week where they put up a lot of points against the Lions. Not something I had predicted would happen. Something I could see a world where the Ravens beat the Lions, but I was completely taken back by the win margin of this game. So, Lions dropping quite a few spots in our top 10. Nevertheless, still a top 10 team. Moving on to number 6, we've got the Miami Dolphins, who lost to the Eagles. A loss to the Eagles is nothing to be ashamed about. The Eagles are one of the best teams in the league, so it's not that big of a knock against Miami. Miami is still a juggernaut of a team, but the Eagles did make pretty easy work out of him. So, which is unfortunate. I was hoping for a more competitive game than what we got out of these two. Nothing too much to say here. Miami will bounce back. They're still going to do great. I still think they're a favorite to win their division and make the playoffs. I see them even making a run in the playoffs. But this week showed that they are not the cock of a walk yet. So, moving on to number 5 it is now. The Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville got a win over the New Orleans Saints. Not the greatest team in the world, but they are putting together a win streak, which is not going unnoticed here. Jacksonville's playing good football. They're tight at every position. I mean, I think they can hang with the best of them. A lot of people see them kind of like as this underdog, kind of like Rocky Balboa story, but did you watch those movies? Rocky won. He went against better opponents and won. And I feel like Jacksonville does kind of embody that this year. They certainly, while not likely, could make a run in the playoffs. We'll see how things shake out. Good win for Jacksonville, even if it wasn't against the most quality opponent. Let's move on to number 4, the 49ers. Previously the number 1 team in the league, but now they're on a 2-loss losing streak, losing to fellow top 10er, the Cleveland Browns, and this week, the Minnesota Vikings on Monday Night Football. This should not have happened. Minnesota is not a good team. They are a bad team with a bad record, and they played against Kirk Cousins in prime time and lost. That should say everything about how bad this loss was for San Francisco. I highly debated putting them even lower on this list, but I think they will regroup. I think when you look at what this team actually is, they aren't defined by this loss or even these 2 losses. They're still a very good team that's going to do very good things this season, but this was a rough one. If we don't see improvement this week, you can see them falling much further than this. In my list, of course. Moving on to number 3, the Baltimore Ravens. Remember when I said earlier the AFC North had a pretty much solid entry at who we are going to guess is going to win this division and make the playoffs? Well, that's the Ravens. They beat the Lions, like I previously talked about on the Lions portion of this video. Keep up, guys. And dominated them. Absolutely took them to school. And the Lions are previously to this week, were one of the teams I was highest on in the entire NFL. I thought they had Super Bowl potential, and I still think they possibly do. But they got spanked this week. So all credit to Baltimore on that. They are a real team. Minus some inconsistent moments, they can hang with anyone, and they can make the Super Bowl if the wind blows the right way. Moving on to number 2, we've got the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs beat the Chargers, who, while having a bad record, are a good team. They have, I mean, if you watch this week's episode of NFL Hell, you might not think I think that, but they are an incredibly talented team, so to beat them is a testament, and it's a divisional win, which puts Kansas City that much closer to getting into the playoffs. I think the gap between number 1 Kansas City and number 2 in their division is like 3 games wide. So Kansas City pretty much has a lock on the playoffs, and we all know that Patrick Mahomes' magic goes far. So Chiefs are looking solid. They are looking likely to return to the Super Bowl. At least, I'd say their basement is getting back to the AFC Championship. So we'll see how things shake out with the Chiefs, number 2 in the league. Moving on to number 1, though, is the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles put it on Miami, who, if you've been watching my rankings this season, I've consistently had in like the top 5 spots of the NFL. Miami is a juggernaut of a team, so to be able to handle them easily says so much about what this Eagles team is capable of, how much talent they have, their coaching, all of it. Everything. There's not a single flaw in the Eagles. I thought there might have been back in like week 2 when they played the Vikings to a 1-score game. I thought there were flaws. I thought there were holes that you could exploit, and those there still very might well be. But when this Philadelphia team is on, they are on. like the Chiefs, they are looking very likely to go back to the Super Bowl. If not, at least, I think they'll be in the NFC Championship game. But that's all I've got this time, guys, for the top 10. Comment down below. Tell me who you think the top 10 NFL teams are after Week 7. Tell me if I got it right. Tell me if I got it wrong. Like this video. Subscribe for more. And I will see you guys next time.